Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and this is the Breaking Free Show. And as always, I am delighted to welcome you into my room. We're going to share today, like we always do. It's you and me, and Amnon, and everybody out there. So happy to have you. Remember, the show is about engagement. It is about us communicating, talking, sharing, learning from each other. And today we're going to do that. Feel free at any point in time during the show to call in at 919-518-9773, or you can Skype with us on computers, that's plural 2K voice. And also, we have a chat, and there's a lot of commentary going on there right now. So please feel free, if you like, to put your name, nickname, whatever you like, underneath the box, and just, take part. We'd love to have you any way you want to show up. So I want to say hello to Amnon.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm really good,
I
actually.
like that coat you have on.
Well, today we're talking about books
Yeah.
and movies as one of our topics. So I decided to dress like I was going to the movies or going to a premiere of some sort. So I'm
Okay.
excited. Big earrings, big coat. Fun. We're going to have fun today. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about movies, how we learn from them, books, what are your favorite books, what are your favorite movies, what can you share with us? We want you to call in, share why that book was impactful to your life, why that movie. And let's just like have a little review going on here. So there's a lot of things going on in the chat. All those chat people are going to be calling in and giving their opinions, and we're going to get ready for the show. Okay, ready? All right. So will you put up my first slide for my PowerPoint? I love to do these slides. So here's the first one, and we start the show every week with this message to you: Speak your mind license. This is a license that entitles you to say what you think without fear of judgment or criticism. Open yourself up, and the world will open up with you. So, this is my way of telling you that please call in. There is no judgment here. This is a place, safe space, a place to learn and grow together. This is a place that we share my opinion, your opinion, whatever. Uh, this city was built on opinions. So we want to share them, and we want yours to matter, and they matter to us. And even though it might be something that I hadn't thought about, maybe it's something that takes me out of my box, maybe I say something that takes you out of your box, or maybe it just leaves you in the box. Don't judge. I'm not judging you. We're just putting it all together and growing from there. So please feel free, any point in time, to even take me off my subject. I don't care. If we're talking about something in particular and you want me to talk about something else, or you want to talk about something else, you go right ahead. You just call in, chat in, whatever you like. We want to do that. So today, our topic, because of a couple of our favorite listeners, said, let's talk about movies and books and our favorite ones. So I'm fine with that. Would you put up the first slide? Thank you. So, books and movies are like apples and oranges. They both are fruit, but taste completely different. And they do. They are completely different, and yet we get extraordinary messages from each of them. And today we're going to share. And I can't remember the books that I love and the movies that have impacted my life. But last night, thinking about this, they started coming to me. So last night I watched a movie about J.K. Rowling, and I don't know if anybody has seen this movie about her. It was very simple and it was impactful, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. But I would love to hear from any one of you out there to start to call in and share what your favorite book was or is, and why you can't put it down. What is it that has grabbed your attention so much so that you just love it and you want to keep on going? What is that? Or what is that movie that had some deep message for you? Either that or just something about the cinematography, the sound, the music. What was it? How did it get you out of your box? Everything that that we can take advantage of is going to teach us something. when we open up and we listen. And books and movies are great examples of those things that can do that to us. They touch us to our soul. They touch us in our senses, and we get to take advantage of it. So feel free to call in anytime and share what what is doing that for you. Let's see if there's anybody on the chat saying anything. Not yet. Okay. So the next slide, learning never exhausts the mind. Learning never exhausts the mind. You know why? Why doesn't it ever exhaust the mind? Because it's not from the mind, really. It excites us. It gives us energy. We imagine different scenarios. It takes us from one part of our life to another. It takes us from one piece of existence to another. So last night, I know you're all dying to hear this. Yesterday I was watching Netflix, and I love Sundays to watch Netflix. Old movies, not too old, but last couple of years old. And I'm watching Netflix, and I'm watching this movie about J.K. Rowling that I really didn't know much about her life story, other than the fact that she wrote Harry Potter. But I am in the process of beginning the process of writing books. So that's always in my mind, this process. How do you do it? How don't you do it? What do you do? And one of the messages that I got from J.K. Rowling while she was in the process of doing Harry Potter was that, first of all, she went through a lot of stuff. She was on, she didn't have money. She was homeless. She had been abused by her husband. She had a child. She was a mother. She went through a lot of things. It took her years to write Harry Potter and to get it going. And she was not about just it wasn't even about being rich for her. It was about the story. And it was about being a writer. And this morning, I didn't even realize this last night, but this morning I'm writing a podcast for a company that has asked me to write a podcast. And I'm writing it, and I'm like, okay, when am I ever going to get done with this thing? It's time. I mean, I've been doing this for weeks now. I want to get done. And then it hit me. J.K. Rowling. It took her years to write Harry Potter. Years. And with that, I got this extraordinary amount of patience. And then what I had been experiencing as like some form of writer's block kind of dissipated. And I just said, okay, Marilyn, this is really valuable. I'm writing a podcast that I have to write word for word, scripted. And I don't do scripted things like that. I mean, this is not scripted, believe me. This is just something I am doing. I don't script these things. I just come out here and I share and I just go with it. And this thing has to be written word for word about parenting and issues with conflict with children. And I'm like, oh my God. So I'm not done yet. And I just got this extraordinary amount of patience this morning and realized however long it takes me, it's going to take me. So that was a huge lesson for me. So we have somebody on the phone. Hello.
Hi, Marilyn. Hi, Amnon. Hello, everyone. It's Chris.
Hey, Chris.
So I am calling because we are big, and I mean big, Star Wars fans here at my house. And so obviously the Star Wars movies are all very impactful, but I had to take the opportunity to share. Y'all remember when the movie came onto the screen and it has the trailer, that the language that's going across the screen? Did you see the movie?
Wait, say that again. Say that again.
The Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
The first one, right?
No, I don't know.
Sitting there.
No,
you didn't see it?
No. Say what it is.
Okay. Well, it's the Star Wars movie, the first one, and one of the first things that was so impactful to me was how they set the stage for the movie. And it starts with the language is going across the screen, and the background is space. And it starts out and it says, a long time ago in a galaxy far,
Oh, yeah. They did that on the TV show.
Far away,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Right.
And, and then it just goes on to say it's a period of civil war, rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base. And I'm reading it. I have it up on my screen right now. have won their first victory against the evil galactic empire, you know, and it's just so rich, and you just can't wait for the story to start.
So what was
And,
it, Chris? So what was it?
Yep.
What was it that was impactful to you? What did it? Where did it put you? What did it do to you? What was it?
I think what it was I'm going to date myself. I was 5, and I saw it in the movie theater, and so it was the enormity of it. It was, you know, the sound of it, and how it was so much larger than life than anything I had ever experienced before in my young life, that I think it just resonated with me and just stuck.
Uh-huh. So it was so it all went together, and it
Yeah,
took-
I think so.
yeah,
It was the whole visceral experience of being in the movie theater, and, you know, seeing these big words and the idea of space, and truly impactful, you know. And I think
Right.
about being in the movie theater at that time, it was just larger than life, and still is, you know. Obviously, I get excited when I talk about Star Wars, but yeah, a truly, truly terrific movie.
Right. You know, it's interesting you would say that, because I feel that way when I go to a 3D movie. I love 3D movies. I just love how all of a sudden I'm sitting there in the audience and there's a flower in front of my face, or something is coming across me that I can touch, and I'm right in it. You know, I'm right in it, and I love 3D movies. And any 3D, I mean, I would go to any 3D movie that I can. I just love how creative it is, how amazing. How you have to think so much about which thing inside the movie you're going to have as the 3D part. Because some of the movie is not as dimensional, I guess I would say. So you really have to think about which piece of the film is going to be the 3D piece.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. So that's cool. So I appreciate you sharing that. Anything else
Yeah,
you
you're
want to
welcome.
share?
Not yet.
Okay, well, listen up. Call in
I'll
anytime.
be here.
All right, good. Call in anytime.
You betcha.
All right, thank you, honey. Bye. So the
Bye.
so the sound, the dimension
right.
of a movie, the just how everything is put together is enveloping. And when we go to movies, we have this extraordinary experience of, you know, it grabs us, it takes us in. So we have another caller. Hello.
Hey, it's me, Susan.
And who is me?
Susan.
Hey, Susan.
Susanny.
How you doing?
Good. I don't know where to begin because, number one, I love books. They've been a part of my life since I'm a toddler. My mom used to walk with us before she drove to the Limbrook Library, and we'd go every week. And even as kids, we'd take out our maximum 3 books, and I always looked forward to it. And I know I was very young because I also remember the day the Limbrook Library burned to the ground. And by then, my mother had a car, and we stood there crying our eyes out. That this beautiful place that we loved to be in just was ravaged by a fire. They rebuilt it. It looks the same, I'm sure. But I was devastated. It was like, where was I going to get my books from? But my mother also is an avid reader. So was my grandfather. He always had a book in his hand. And my mother used to get Reader's Digest condensed books.
Yes.
And even as a kid, even when I was in elementary school, I looked forward to those books coming, and I would read through all 4 novels that were in the book. Even though they were beyond my reading years, I was an avid reader. And in fact, I got in trouble in 3rd grade because I did a book report on the 3 Faces of Eve, and my teacher was like, "Where did you get that book?"
Wow. I remember that book.
Yep, and that became a movie.
Yes.
All the good books that I loved, many became movies, but I'm going to...
Well, let me ask you something before you go on, because this is I want to ask you this question. So, do you think the book is better than the movie, equal to the movie, the movie is better than the book? What do you think?
Always the book is better.
Always.
And I like a movie if, and only if, because when we read a book, the author, if they're a good author, describes the characters in a way that makes us imagine in our minds what they look like and what they're like. And then oftentimes we get disappointed by the cast of the movies, or that they don't meet up to what our imagination had envisioned. So if I see a movie before I read the book, that's a different story. But if you read the book and then, and also too, they can't put everything on screen.
Right.
So things are left out. And I often find that important things are left out in my mind, but then I'm not a script writer. And, you know, just so you know, because I used to write, I don't anymore, had an agent, had manuscripts, the whole 9 yards, but I also had a friend that was a script writer, and he wrote only screenplays, and so of his own, original ones. But he explained to me that a screenplay is 120 pages.
Wow.
And that is it, period, amen. It's not 125, it's not 80, it's 120, and that's the magic formula. So that they do have to leave a lot out. You can't take a 400-page
No,
book.
but what I've always loved about movies, especially when it was about a book, was I could imagine from the movie then what people look like. You know, and then having read the book and seeing the movie, I then can imagine how they looked and how they dressed, and you know, they kind of took life, I guess, even though there was always something.
Yeah, but wait. I get that, okay?
Yeah.
But I could give you a good example, and anybody that was a what's his name? I'd have to go to my bookshelf. I'm drawing a blank. Lee.
What was it about?
Lee Child, and the movie came out last year. He had a series of books, and Jack Reacher was the main, the character. It was a continuing series of books. Although we didn't know it was going to be, his first was such a bestseller, he continued the character. But this Jack Reacher was tall and thin, and in fact, the author named him Reacher because he said to his wife, "What should I name this character?" She said, "Well, you're tall and thin, and you're in the stores, and old ladies always ask you, could you get that for me? And you're the Reacher." So that's how they came up with the name of the character. I love the stories behind the books, but but they had Tom Cruise play him.
I don't know.
And Tom Cruise is short.
Well, you know, that's interesting, because I think that there have been times, and I can't recall which scenario that is, but that what happened in the movie is so different. And it was recently I had read a book and saw the movie, and the scenario, I was so excited to see the movie, but the scenario was so different that I don't know why they did that way. If a book is successful, that they want to make it into a movie, why do they change it, though? That's what's curious to me. Why do they change it? There's no reason to change it if it's going to be if it's good, right?
Exactly.
If it's good, it's good. Why
but it's
change
only
it?
as good as the person that wrote the screenplay.
Right. Well, but if the book is good, why change it? I mean, why have somebody, you know, in changing it completely? I don't get it.
Exactly.
But
I don't either.
So hold on a minute, will you? I want to show the next slide, and then I want to talk more. So here we go. Once you stop learning, you start dying, and I feel like books and certainly movies offer an opportunity for people, their own personal classroom. I know that when I was separated and getting a divorce from my first husband, the thing that kept me going, and you spoke about when you were a child, was going to Barnes & Noble and just sitting there with books. I didn't have to buy them. I just loved like making a study. I would go on Sunday mornings when my children were gone at their dad's or whatever, and I wanted to learn about wine. I would just sit there and read wine books. I found it so comforting to be around books. And you just said something about that, with as a child, and I think, just holding a book is
Yes.
can be it's such books have energy, don't you think?
Yes. Yes.
I remember years ago listening to Wayne Dyer. Do you know who he is?
Of course. He's one of my favorite people.
Favorite, right? Great spiritual, metaphysical writer, great writer. He said when in his office, he keeps a stack of books that he loves. These are books that have inspired him, whether it's the Bible, regardless of what it is, it doesn't matter. Great novels. He keeps it on his desk because they help to inspire him when he's writing, and he can feel the energy from the book. I think that's extraordinary. I've always thought about that. Like having your books on your bookshelf, even if you've not read them in a long time.
Yep.
Susiani, right?
I do it. And some of my favorite haunts, especially when I lived in the country, there were some great ones, is used bookstores.
Oh, yeah.
There was one that was called the Book Barn. It was on top of a mountain, and it was a 3-story barn with books in every nook and cranny, and it had a beautiful grape arbor outside and a pond, and you could actually take the books and go outside and read. You didn't have to buy them if you didn't want to.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a way to spend an afternoon. You could bring a picnic. There was never anybody in the barn, like nobody pressuring you to buy.
Right.
It was like, it was an amazing place. It's some place that I actually miss very much. But I want to tell you who my favorite author is.
Okay, good, yeah.
Because it would be hard to narrow it down to her. And I know you'll know who she is, and you'll understand everything about what I'm going to say. And I don't know, people might be too young to even relate to what I'm going to reference here. But Lillian Hellman is one of my favorite authors. Okay, and if that name doesn't sound familiar, she had a long-standing love affair with Dashiell Hammett. They never got married because his wife wouldn't divorce him.
With who? Say who was the love affair with?
Dashiell.
Okay.
Dashiell Hammett.
Okay.
He's the one. He's the Maltese Falcon. He's the same Sam
So
Spade novels.
you really do love. Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So you made a statement before that you love like the behind-the-scenes story.
Oh yes, I do.
Of the writers of this or the movie, the director, whatever. What is it about that you love so much?
Because I know as a writer that the way you're successful is to write what you know. So even though you're reading fiction, it's coming from somebody's real life experiences.
No, that's an interesting. Okay.
And
That's
it might not be
interesting.
theirs,
Okay.
it might be somebody else's that they observed, but it comes from somewhere because that's
Okay.
the only way you're successful. If you don't know what you're writing, people you're not going to be able to relate it to people in a believable way.
Okay,
and
that's
isn't that true of fiction? We want it to be believable even though we know it's fiction.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so
And also, too,
yeah,
to speak to why we love books as a kid, okay? And it hurts me that I don't see children reading books. I would get lost in my books. I mean, lost in them. I would put myself into the place of the character, especially if it was a female, and the books you can't put down, you'll stay up all night reading, and then you're sorry when they're done because you loved the people in it so much. That's how you know a book is good. For me, that's how you know.
Well, you know what? When I was young, I don't know, I must have been 12, 13, I don't know. I too used to love to read, and I just love to read. I read Peyton Place.
Oh, yes, me too.
Did you really?
Oh, yes, me too. In fact, I know the whole story about, she's dead because she drank herself to death.
Who are you talking?
Because everybody hated her.
Who are you talking about?
The author of Peyton Place. I'll tell you her name in a second. I'm having a little brain freeze here. But because everybody in town thought they were in the book. And they actually hated her, and they ostracized her, and she died at the age of 38 from alcohol.
Are you talking about the real author? Oh,
the real author.
Oh, the author.
Real author.
So before we go on, Peyton Place, I don't know what it was about it, but just for those of you who maybe never heard about it, it was
A great movie.
it was a great movie.
It was a TV show.
It was a TV
it was
show.
on late at night.
Yeah,
yes,
what's his
late
name
at
was
night.
in it? What's his name was
Troy
in it?
Donahue.
No.
Mia Farrow.
Yeah.
Ryan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he was.
in the TV show.
Oh, I don't know.
It was great, right? And there
Oh,
was
it was fabulous.
there was a raunch. It was raunchy on some level. There was a lot of sex.
That's why it was on at 11:30 at night.
So how come? So it's interesting, and it was like a soap opera. It was like the first soap opera maybe that
Yep.
ever existed, right? But and one book led, was from it. It all follows. But what's so interesting is that I must have been 12 or 13 years old reading that book. How old were you?
Had to be about the same age because we're close in age, and I remember when it came out, but more so, I was addicted to that TV series late at night.
But how was it that kids our age were reading that book? Because we are not the only ones that were reading that book. What was it
Right.
about that book?
Okay, the TV show was on from 1964 to 1969, so I was 12 in 64.
So 69. So I was 15.
It ended in 69. It started in 1964.
So I was So 9. So I was 9 when it started, or 10 when
Yeah,
it
but
started.
she wrote the book in 1956.
Okay, so but why was it? I mean, I was 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15. I mean, what was it about that book that young girls, and maybe boys too, I don't know, but a lot of young girls read that book then? It was really
Because
interesting.
it was juicy. It was juicy.
It was juicy.
It was the first book that had sex and
Yeah.
lies and cheating and who did what to who. It was a drama. That book was that show.
How
and the
did
book
my
was a
parents
drama.
let me read that book?
I don't know if they let you.
How did I even know? I mean, I'm sitting here like I'm a grandma now. It's interesting that so many of us back in that day read that book, and maybe we look at, do we look at sex and intimacy differently, or that would still be raunchy? Would that, the book
Because
was
it was also a small town story. It was supposed to be like small
Yeah.
town New Hampshire, New
Okay.
England, whatever.
and the book was explicit.
It was ugly.
In some way, it was explicit.
It really followed. I'm just looking on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia says it followed the lives of 3 women. Constance Mackenzie, remember?
Yeah.
And Allison, that was Mia Farrow, I believe. And
Yeah.
then there was Selena Cross was the other character. But
Oh
it
yeah,
was,
Selena.
remember?
Oh yeah.
And the cast was marvelous, and it was acted so well. But it was, if you remember, I mean, it really played more like a movie than a soap opera because it didn't look like today's soap operas.
How is it different?
I don't know. Maybe
So-
because it was produced and directed by, somebody that, because you felt like you were there. You were drawn in. That's the thing. You were
Okay,
really
so
drawn
so so I just want everybody out there who's not. I mean, look what we're doing, based on a book that
Yep.
we both read years ago that I don't think about, but obviously impacted my life. I think it was, when you're 12 or 13, for some reason I can't put my finger on why we read that book. But look how
I can't either.
but it really, look how impactful that was. And I know
Yes.
that I am somehow different, freer, having
Yes.
read that book.
Yes. And her name was Grace Metalius. That's who the author was.
Well, that's cool.
And she only had one book now. And it was
that
on
was
the
it?
bestsellers list for 59 weeks.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because last night in the movie that I was watching about J.K. Rowling, and this is in the book, so in the movie, and I don't know if this has changed. I don't know when the movie came out, but based on that movie, from whenever it was that I heard last night, every 30 seconds, somebody is picking up a Harry Potter book. Every 30 seconds.
I've never read one, and I've never seen any of the movies.
Every 30 seconds, somebody in the world is picking up that book.
Wow.
Is that amazing to you?
Yeah, it is.
Every 30 seconds. That's how people, and somebody who was you said that kids are not reading today.
Well, they are, but not books. They're reading on Kindles.
Right.
know,
so
on the
so what do you
handheld
think is
devices.
the difference? What's the difference in holding a book and reading a book on Kindle to you?
Well, because Well, I'm going to tell you, because the world has changed. If you walk into any classroom today, you're going to see a screen, and the teacher sits there, and she's doing stuff on a computer, and it shows up on the big screen. Everything is, it's not about books anymore.
Right, right.
I don't see books come home with the kids either.
Yeah, I love, honestly, I love, and it depends on the subject or what I'm doing. I like reading it on my iPad because I can see it, it's light, but I love like holding a book and being able to go back to the book and all
And
of that
curling
stuff.
up in bed with a book.
Yeah, I love
falling asleep
that.
with it on your lap. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something about the magic of that, isn't there?
Yes. All
So-
right, now I want to
yeah.
tell you about a serious book.
Okay, but wait a minute. I interrupted you before. I want
Yeah.
you to go back to the story of what you were saying before. Do you remember? Of you were talking
Lillian
about
Hellman?
your favorite. Yeah. And
Okay,
Okay. So
that's
hold.
what I wanna tell you
okay,
about.
Okay. Hold on one second. Listen. This is anybody can enter this conversation. So call us 919-518-9773 or Skype in with us at Computers 2K Voice. What was your favorite book growing up? Why? What is your favorite book now? Why? What was the movie? What has been the movie? What was the movie that's impacted you? Is it, like I said, 3D, or is it? What is it? What is it about these things that have made such a difference, or not? So we'd love to hear your take. And now Suze is sharing about the behind the scenes story.
Okay, but
Yeah.
first, because you just triggered something in my head. I
Okay.
don't know why I didn't write this one
Okay.
down.
Okay.
Who of us didn't read Sylvia Plath's The Bell Jar and get impacted by that? That was like a cult book, and she's
Yeah.
dead, and she died young.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was that defined my teenage years. Is that book?
What was it about that defined it?
Because I could relate to her. I could relate to her.
Oh.
And her mother tried to keep that book from being published because people would think it was true, which it was, and she didn't like the way she looked in it or some of the relatives, and she tried to keep it from being published in the United States because it was a big hit in England.
Really?
But it got here.
Wow. Okay, Amnon has something.
I've got just
Yeah,
a short,
yeah,
a
go
short
ahead.
comment about
Yeah.
real books.
Yeah.
There's one good thing: the fact
Paper.
that they are not. No, that's
I
beside
was
that.
to say paper. Yeah.
I mean, to have it electronic, you can't burn them. So they're not going to be able to take all the tablets and laptops and put them in a bonfire and burn them. No, I mean books are just going to keep on going. There's
That's
no way to
interesting.
stop it.
That's very interesting.
Yeah,
That's a
but with
good-
the Kindle and the handheld, you can't hold on to the books you love either. You can't put them on a shelf as a reminder of, and you know what I mean?
Well, yes, and people, look, there are books that are being put on Kindle that are not, that people are writing just for getting themselves to do other things, just to give them permission, to give themselves a name, not necessarily as a book that is going to sell every 30 seconds.
Most of the
You know?
books that are on Kindle or in electronic forms are done so because of one main reason:
Cost.
Cost.
So
It's a fortune to have a book published,
It
but
really
not like
is.
that.
It,
Yeah, and we
honestly,
don't have
yeah.
the big publishers that we used to
Right.
have. There's only a handful left.
Right. So, I mean, there are independent publishers and all of that. So, I think everything in its place. I think that when a book is really going to be fabulous, I'm hoping maybe it's a pipe dream when it really is going to be fabulous. It will be in a hardbound book, and you'll be able to buy it on Amazon. If it's going to be, something that a lot of people are using just as a calling card, it won't matter anyway,
Mhm.
So, okay, so go ahead. What were you going to
Okay,
say?
so
Go ahead.
Lillian Hellman
Yeah.
and Dashiell Hammett, they were both blacklisted in the 50s with the McCarthy era.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Lillian Hellman, I have two favorite books of hers, but I love everything. The Children's Hour was way before its time. A schoolmaster was being accused of being
Oh.
a lesbian.
Oh, yeah, I love that. Oh, I loved it as a movie. I
That's
never
Lillian
read the...
Hellman.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even realize. Oh.
She was a playwright. That was a play that was made
Yes.
into a movie.
Oh, I loved it.
Okay, so now the book I want you to write down and I want you to promise me you will find in a library and read is
Okay.
Scoundrel Time.
Scoundrel Time?
Yes, you
Okay.
must read this book
Okay.
because it tells, and again, 99% of what Lillian Hellman wrote was true, and there are people that to this day dispute whether these people ever existed that are in her books. But she tells the story when she goes to Russia, and then she gets accused of being a communist. Okay, but she was a Jewish woman. Okay, she was very concerned. She's long dead. She died in the 80s.
Okay.
I have a personal story about that because the guy that she lived with and then he owns her house, I actually talked to on my birthday one year because he's an author also, and I dialed information, got his
That's
number,
cool.
and talked to him on my birthday. But anyway,
Okay.
Scoundrel Time
Yeah.
is will change your life. But Pentimento is her most famous book, and Pentimento is a series
So
of
you know
short
what we're going to
stories.
do? We're going to, okay, so for everybody that's listening, you know, we publish our show notes every week on MarilynShannon.com so that you can go back and check out some of the things that we're talking about, some of the websites. So this will all be in the show notes. So don't worry about it. Don't sit there and just go run and get a pen. Listen to the show first. So,
Okay,
and then
but-
you could go ahead.
The story from Pentimento that you all know, but you don't realize it's from her book,
Right.
is the movie that was called Julia with Jason Robards, Jane Fonda, and Vanessa Redgrave. Okay, Jane Fonda plays Lillian Hellman in it. Jason
Oh.
Robart is Dashiell Hammett. Vanessa Redgrave is a friend of hers,
Okay.
named Julia, who she
Yeah.
went to boarding school with, okay?
Yeah.
And this woman, pre-World War II, is in Nazi Germany trying to save the Jews and trying to alert the world about what's really going on. This
Okay.
book, that's the story. It's one little chapter in Pentimento about this Julia, and it was made into a blockbuster
Okay.
movie. Okay,
Yes.
very good.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I love the love story between Lillian Hellman and Dashiell Hammett, and there was a movie made for TV, and I think it was on Entertainment, that channel, or
Right.
one of those cable channels, but it was called Dash and Lily. If you can ever get hold of the movie, it tells the story of them and her as a writer and him being critical of her and how that made her a better writer, et cetera, et cetera. But, and people do dispute whether Julia ever existed, but I believe she did, and I believe that the child in the movie that went missing, lived and grew up because...
So do you love autobiographies or biographies?
That brings me to my most current, and getting to current books. If you read no other book this year, and it came out 2 years ago, and I read it when it did,
Uh-huh.
it's by Carol Radswell, and it's called What Remains, and she was married to a Kennedy,
There you are.
Robert Kennedy's cousin Anthony, and John Kennedy, John Jr.'s cousin Anthony, but Carolyn Bessette, who died in the plane crash with John Jr., were her best friends. And so this book is about two losses that she suffered. One, she got married to the man she loved, and within a year or two, he was dead. Okay? And then she loses her two best friends when that plane disappears and JFK's son,
Yes,
John Jr.
right.
Remember?
Right.
Okay, this book is beautifully written, and it will impact you. It's a heart-wrenching but wonderful book, and that's on my top list of books that I love. And the other one is one that I think many of you are familiar with, Sarah Van Brecknock. I don't know how to say her last name, but the one that wrote Simple Abundance, and Oprah used to have
Oh,
her on
yeah, I
all
know.
the time.
A Blanchard or Blanchard?
No, B-R-E-A, Brecknock is
Oh,
how
okay.
it's spelled.
Okay.
And that book you read daily. It's 365
it's-
days of reading.
yeah,
You're supposed to
It's
do it
not
each
by
day.
Blanchard or something? Beautiful?
No. It's
Okay.
Dan Brecknock.
Oh, okay. But
And
it's a
I have it in front of me, only because I have it in front of me.
It's a lovely book. Hold on one second. Chris is saying that one of the most impactful books that she's read recently is The Life-Changing Magic Art of Tidying Up.
We should have a whole show on that book.
Seriously. Maybe we need to ask Marie Kondo, is that how you pronounce her name? To be a guest. It has helped me understand my connection to my things very clearly and helped me declutter in ways I've never, you know, these books, while we're talking about this, and maybe this is something we want to do on a regular basis, is come here and review from our heart, like you are.
Yep.
Great books, great stories, great movies, because they really do make a difference. You know, years ago, Susiani, well, my children were young, like just entering into like teenage years, and there was a book about teenage girls called Othello or something like that. And I remember it's a famous book, and I remember one of my daughter's friends had committed suicide, and I was freaking out because it was beginning to happen in that. And my daughters are now 33, 30, but it was happening around them, and I was like freaking out. And I was a single parent, and so somebody suggested I take a look at that book, and I started reading it. What I didn't even have to finish the book. See, that's the thing. Sometimes you get a book and you don't even have to finish it. You get all you need or all that you're supposed to get, and you don't even have to get done with it. And the book was magnificently written about teenage adolescent girls. And if your children, your daughters, have a connection to you and to their extended family, cousins, grandmother, uncles, aunts, all of those people, then they're going to be a lot safer than they would be if they were disconnected. And I stood back and I thought, my children are connected. They love their grandparents. They have cousins they love. You know, we go out all the time. I'm cool. I'm okay. And I put the book down, and I will never forget that feeling that book took me to a place that I felt safe. And I didn't have to read the whole book. So it's amazing, isn't it, what we can get? And
Yes.
Right?
Yes, I have another little tidbit I want to throw in there. Because
Okay.
go back to my childhood, and I was an avid Bobbsey Twin reader. And I used to take my allowance, walk 2 miles to Woolworth, and I had my list of the ones I already had at home, and I would buy new. And I remember in second grade, I was going into the hospital to have my tonsils out. My mother gave me $1, and she told me to go to Woolworth to get a book to take to the hospital with me. And there was a new Bobbsey Twin, which they weren't new. They were written in the 40s. But I remember the price had gone up, and it was now 99 cents plus tax, and I didn't have enough money with my $1.
Yeah.
And I was such a frequent flyer there as far as buying my Bobbsey Twin books that they let me have it for $1. But I was so disappointed after I got my first computer in 1999 and did a little research and found out the Bobbsey Twins weren't written by Laura Lee, whoever, that all those books, the Hardy Boys, the Bobbsey Twins, all those children's serial books, each one was written by a different person, that those were really, you can't even say a pen name. Those people didn't exist. That the books were really, it was amazing that they followed a journey because they really weren't written by the same people. But those books had to be rewritten in the last 20 years because of the N-word being used and because of the way, there were black maids and whatnot. They actually have changed those books and rewritten them now, which I think is travesty because would you rewrite To Kill a Mockingbird?
Or Gone with
you
the
wouldn't.
Wind? Yeah, no.
Right?
Or Gone with the No. You're
Right,
right.
you
What a
wouldn't.
good thought. That's a great thought. That's
You know?
that's a really good thought. Honestly, that's a really good thought. Why would you? I mean, it is what it is, right? It was what it was. It's historical.
Yeah.
Why would you change it?
Right.
That's a really good thought. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Can you put up another? Yes. Let's see the next slide. Okay, have we done that one? No. Where are you? What does yours say?
Learning is
Have we done that one yet? We haven't? Okay. Learning is what? Say.
is an experience. Everything else is just information.
Yeah, but okay, that's at the end. But go back.
What do you mean that's at the end?
Well, go back. I think we've missed a few.
No, there's next one.
Okay, that's where. Okay. Oh yeah, right. I'm sorry. Okay, so learning is an experience. Everything else is just information. You're right. You're right. You're right. I could be wrong.
Stop it.
Okay.
Let's assume that I'm always right. Okay.
Okay, I'm assuming you're
Don't
okay. All
don't
right.
say you're
Okay.
right. You're right.
Well, you are. What's wrong with that? Okay, so he was right. I was wrong. Okay, so learning is an experience. Everything else is just information. So learning is dimensional, right? I mean, it's you get to live it, you get to breathe it, you get to dream about it, experience. You get to see it the next day. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, and books and movies help us do that. So hold on, don't go anywhere, Susiani. Good. The next one. Education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. Susiani,
Yes.
what do you think of that one?
I really believe that is what teachers should be doing in school is training the mind. It isn't about the facts. I don't remember half the crap that I learned in school that I was never going to use again, but
Right.
it did train my mind. And the fact that I was a reader is the reason I did well in school.
Right.
But I also paid attention, and I had good teachers. So yes, you got to train the mind. It isn't about the facts that you learn because you forget half the facts. I'm not
Right.
going to be on Jeopardy. I don't, I need
Right.
new hard drive in my brain.
It's the experience.
Yes.
It's the problem solving. It's not just the Band-Aid. It's all the whole experience, right?
Right.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Chris was saying in chat about the Nancy Drew mysteries.
Yeah.
Those were excellent. I read those, and I read the Hardy Boys when I was a kid.
Well, those were the books then.
Yeah,
And I think
then there
those were
was
the
a
books
Cherry Ames nurse series also, but I never
Yes.
got into that.
Right, because you didn't want to be a nurse. You like the
Maybe.
exploring part, right? So let's
it was-
look at this next one because I like this one. Warning: you are about to enter a library. This is one of the most dangerous places you will ever visit. Danger. Prepare to question, think, and challenge.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
like
Where
that.
did you see that?
every
Enjoy
library.
your visit. It says on the bottom. Enjoy your visit.
Every library. Every
Yeah.
library can just wake that up. The more we question, oh my God, or the more we talk about, or the more I say you're right or I say no, I'm right. The more we have an opinion is a good thing. So, okay, everybody, remember you can call in and chat with us because this is kind of fun. And if you've seen a movie lately or documentary, I think documentaries are phenomenal, and it is our way of making a difference. It is our way of speaking up. And just like Amnon put up our first slide, remember, this show gives you a license to go crazy.
Oh,
to have fun.
Marilyn.
What, honey?
Marilyn.
What?
Last night, somebody messaged me and said, turn on, in the wee hours, turn on the Travel Channel.
Yeah.
Marilyn, if you can find a show to watch the rerun of it, it's called Breaking Borders, and they had an Israeli and a Palestinian family having dinner together and getting to know each other.
Was it,
and
so it was
the
real?
person that messaged me said,
Yeah.
this should be on prime time. If people would watch this show, they would understand that no matter which country and who you think your enemy is, these are people, real people. And that's not a movie, but it's a TV show. And I watched the whole thing last night, and it was excellent.
Susiani, and everybody, I'm in the process of writing books, and it is just about that kind of thing. And it's about conflict. How, with a little bit of effort, we can connect. We can. Oh my God, I have to see that.
You have to, because number one, the recipes were mouth-watering, but that's not what it was about. But I kept looking at the food because the Israelis were having the Palestinian food for the first time and vice versa. But all I kept saying was, man, I will say that, okay, about all the Jewish people. And I grew up, I went to school. The school was all Jewish. My mother's best friend was Jewish. She was very religious, and she used to have to bring her pots and pans to our house during the high holy holidays, and we exchanged, they spent holidays with us, and it was a learning experience.
Right.
And they were the only Jewish people on our block, and people kind of looked at them funny. But the thing is, See, I have a multicultural family,
Yeah.
and so I don't have like these far-flung, deep-seated like notions or prejudices ever. Okay, but To Kill a Mockingbird, and and so you have to watch that show because it was delightful.
So do you know that? Remember the name of it by any
The
chance?
name of the show was Breaking Borders.
Breaking
And
Borders. So
Yeah,
Chris,
it might be a series on Travel
okay,
Channel.
so Chris is probably in the chat, and if you can help me remember that, or Susiana, if you could text that to me, send it to me later, because that's something I would love to make comments of in my book about conflict. But so you
and
have
also another
yeah.
defining book, To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah.
When I was young, my mother was very sick, and we had help that used to come in. My sister used to joke that we had maids and butlers, but that's not what it was. You know, somebody came in to help with the heavy cleaning, the ironing, to do the floors, whatever, when my mother was in and out of hospitals. But my mother was such that they became part of our family. My mother would say, oh, if one of the women would cancel because she didn't have a babysitter, my mother would say, bring your kids. And these were black women. And one woman named Mary brought her son Jerry, who was the same age as my younger brother. And so we were all playing in the yard, and my best friend who lived next door, I'm telling her, come on, hop the fence, come and play. And she said, oh, no. She says, oh, we're not allowed to come over there while he's there. And I remember going up, calling him over, little Jerry, rubbing his arm, and then rubbing her arm with my same hand, and I said, the color doesn't rub off. And I remember that to this day, and I was very young, okay? But my mother was getting phone calls. Keep him in the backyard.
Oh.
Don't let him out front with the rest. And I lived through the civil rights movement. Our school was the first one to bus and integrate, and our school got closed down. Crosses burned on the front lawn. This is in Malvern.
Right. So hold on to that thought. So what I want to say is you can notice trends that are happening in the world, in your communities, just by noticing the trends in books and the trends in movies.
Yes.
And I think I see good things happening in a lot of the trends in the dialogues and the words people choose in movies. I see maybe sometimes what's happening that we haven't even paid attention to is happening in the movies before we've even noticed that they're even happening. So hold on. Let me look at and if anybody else, I know Cindy is out on the chat too, and she had a book that was her favorite that she was going to mention, and I don't see that there. So Cindy, you can call in and mention it too. All right, the next hold on.
I think it was called The Love Letter. I think the book she's referencing is called The Love Letter.
And what was that about?
She said it was a love story of two people linked by destiny but separated by more than 100 years. But the present day Scott corresponds with Elizabeth from the 1800s. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does sound familiar. Oh, that sounds cool. Okay, here's the slide. I love books. I love that moment when you open one and sink into it. You can escape from the world into a story that's way more interesting than yours will ever be.
The story of my life. Exactly.
Is that yours? Okay, so is that the story of your life?
It is. I got lost in books. I went on journeys and visited places I will never be because of books. And yes, I'm telling you that is that could be my quote. That's beautiful.
So I think probably a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
About books, that they, like for me, books used to be like a movie, and I would love it. So I think a lot of people feel that way. They can escape into a book, and it's wonderful and it's fun. But I think you become that educated person. You become that worldly, even if you've not been to Paris before. I mean, you probably or Europe, anywhere, or the Far East or the Middle East or whatever. I mean, you become that educated person. You become somebody through the book. Right?
Yes. But talking about movies, and it's not a book, I mean, it might be, but it's not a book I read. My favorite recent movie in the last 10 years or so, and I don't watch movies more than once because you already know what happened, but this one I watch over and over again because it's so good. It's called It's Complicated with Meryl Streep.
Yes.
That's
Funny,
and,
right?
and Steve Martin.
Yeah, very
and
funny movie.
Who was her ex-husband? Baldwin there. Alex
Yeah,
Baldwin.
yeah, it's very funny.
Oh, hysterical! But
Yeah.
see that kind of movie grabs me. I love that
Yeah,
kind
that
of
was
movie.
that was very funny. Okay,
Because
so
we can relate. We
oh
can
yeah,
relate.
well, when they were smoking, when they were smoking pot, I was hysterical.
Oh, I was too. But
And-
when he had the screen on the laptop and she's in the bathroom.
Yeah, oh yeah, it was very funny. It was
Oh, funny as
All
hell.
right, hold on. So let's go to the next one. The next slide. Tell me and I forget. Show me and I remember. Involve me and I understand. And that's what books and movies, plays, that's what they do. They involve us. They bring us in. I think that's really beautiful. Okay, the next one. Hold on.
Can I interject another movie
Yeah,
here?
yeah.
Who wasn't impacted if they saw Sophie's Choice?
Oh,
Another Nazi Germany type of movie, okay, but where she had to choose between which one of her kids was going to get killed.
yes. Oh, yeah.
Remember that movie?
Oh, yeah. That's interesting because, that's very interesting because years ago I used to smoke cigarettes and I was pregnant. And I remember watching an Anne Margaret movie, Who Will Love My Children? And she was a woman dying of cancer who had like 8 children. And one by one, she had to give her children away. And I remember that movie, and it was so real. I think that's what was so incredible. It was so real that from that moment forward, I stopped smoking cigarettes.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you think about it, movies are really cool. Amnon's giving me the thumbs up. I mean, when you think about really and truly, I hadn't thought about it like this before, but these movies, I'm so glad we're talking about it because they are freeing. I mean,
Tell
right?
Amnon to give me a thumbs up. Today's 169 days on my calendar that I haven't had a cigarette.
Now what?
After smoking for 45 years.
Wow. Good for
Yeah.
you. Oh
Yeah.
my God, you gave me the chills.
Keep it up.
Keep it up. Yeah.
Oh,
keep
no,
it up.
I'm never going back.
Keep it up. Keep it up. Okay, I want to go. Hold on. I could say a million things about that, but go to the next one. The next one. Oh, then is that what I would be Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I would be most content if my children grew up to be the kind of people who think decorating consists mostly of building enough bookshelves.
Can I tell you a story that just happened to me this week?
Okay.
A person that lived up front from me in my courtyard, but nobody ever knew him. He lived here the same 9 years that I have been,
Yeah.
and he was way younger than me. He
Yeah.
died.
Oh.
And one of the maintenance guys came over to tell me, come over. I think you're going to want to take some stuff out of this apartment. There was no furniture in the apartment. All the rooms, 2 bedrooms, a living room, the kitchen, the laundry room, nothing but bookshelves, lined with books, organized, all titles
my.
facing the same way, categorized, and I only took 1 shelf's worth. I picked and chose, but it was a shame because everything got thrown in the dumpster, and it made me cry because that's not where I want to see books go, to the landfill.
Oh.
But bookshelves, that's more the
yeah.
feeling.
Oh yeah, I love them. Okay, don't go. Okay, go ahead. One more. Go ahead. Next. Okay, the next one. I love this one. Okay, to read. This is what we're doing. To read without reflecting is like eating without digesting.
And that's the difference between books and movies. Books, you can put it down for a second and think about what you just read, and then pick it up. Again. I do that all the time. I always reflect when I'm reading.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. That's a good point. I would say that you could do that I would say that you could do that with movies too. That you can reflect, because without reflecting on anything, you're not taking it in. You're not digesting it. It just goes in and out, and that's it. It doesn't impact you at all. But when you can digest, when you can eat and take it in,
Yes.
it makes a difference. And of course,
Yes.
reading does that. I think that's one reason sometimes magazines and newspapers, I don't know, maybe they'll come back again, or maybe some of them will never die. They just have to get up with the trends, because people like to hold them in their hands. They like to flip the pages. They like to underline, they like to touch. So, what time is it? Oh, Susiani.
I know.
Oh my God, we'll have to do this again, okay?
And we have to do the show that on that book that Chris read because
Yes.
I know how it impacted her life, but it's also impacting thousands. People are reading it and really
Okay.
changing their
Well,
lives
let's
from that
have
book.
her. Let's have her on. So we're gonna. This has been so much fun. I would love to do this again. So we'll let you all know out there when we do this again and review. We'll have our own reviewing of movies and books. How about that?
And I want to say to your listeners, see how easy it is to call in and talk to Marilyn? The phone should be ringing off the hook. People are afraid to call. They shouldn't be afraid to call. It's like sitting in the same room with Marilyn and having a conversation with your best friend.
Yeah. And I am your best friend.
I know. You are.
Well, we're
I
all
love
best
you, Marilyn,
friends.
and I love you, Amnon. Both of you.
Yeah, and we're all best friends, right? So
Yeah.
we're going to have to say goodbye now. Unfortunately, this has been fun, but we will be back again next week and with another delightful show. Delightful. Impactful and delightful. If I can be of any service to you at all, please let me know. You can contact me at marilyn@marilynshannon.com. Love to hear from you. I have something that I would love to share with you. I have a document that's like the Declaration of Independence. It's all about listening, and I'd love to give it to you because what we're doing is we're tapping in. And when you tap in, the world is there for you to digest. So give me a holler. I have this document. I'd love to send it to you. It's all about listening to yourself, to the world around you. Susiana, you've been great. Chris, everyone, Cindy on the chat, everybody on the chat, everybody out there, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next week. Amnon, mwah. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCBVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.